Commander Zixthara sat in her office, looking at the old files on her desk. She had been working for the Galactic Council for 30 years. In that time, she had met hundreds of different alien species. Some were smart, some were strong, some were fast, but none of them had surprised her like the humans did. The first time she heard about humans was 10 years ago. The report said they came from a small blue planet called Earth. They lived in the third ring of a normal star system. Nothing special about it at all. The planet was not very big, not very rich, and not very important. The humans themselves looked simple too. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and walked upright like many other species. When the human ship arrived at the space station, Zixthara was not impressed. The ship was old and slow. It made strange noises when it moved. The metal looked rough and patched in many places. Other aliens at the station laughed when they saw it. They called it a flying junk pile. Some even wondered how it had made the journey without falling apart. The humans who came out of the ship looked nervous. Their leader was a man named Captain Jake Morrison. He was not very tall and had gray hair. His clothes were simple and clean, but not fancy. Next to him walked a woman called Dr. Lisa Carter. She had brown hair and kind eyes. She kept looking around with wonder, like she had never seen anything so amazing. Captain Morrison spoke first. His voice was quiet and respectful. He said his people wanted to join the Galactic Federation. They hoped to learn from other species and share what they knew. Dr. Carter nodded and smiled at everyone. She seemed excited to meet new aliens. She asked many questions about their cultures and planets. The other aliens at the meeting were not very interested. The Zephyrians, with their tall bodies and blue skin, looked bored. The Vorthan representatives, who had 4 arms and scales, barely paid attention. The Kethmori ambassador, a large warrior with sharp teeth, seemed annoyed by the whole thing. To all of them, humans looked weak and unimportant. Zixthara watched the humans carefully. They had brought gifts from their planet. Small things like books, music, and pictures of their world. The gifts were not valuable, but they were made with care. The humans explained each gift with pride. They talked about their history, their art, and their dreams for the future. What struck Zixthara most was how the humans acted. They were polite to everyone, even the species that were rude to them. When the Kethmori ambassador insulted their ship, Captain Morrison just smiled and said they were still learning. When the Vorthan representative called their technology primitive, Dr. Carter thanked him and asked if he could teach them better ways. The humans also showed something strange. They were not afraid to admit they did not know things. Most species tried to act smart and powerful when they met the council, but the humans openly said they were young and inexperienced. They asked for help and guidance. They seemed genuinely grateful for any advice. During the formal meeting, the humans presented their request. They wanted to trade with other species. They wanted to learn new technologies. They wanted to explore the galaxy in peace. Captain Morrison explained that Earth had many problems. Wars, pollution, and hunger were common. They hoped that joining the galaxy would help them solve these issues. The council members asked many questions. How many humans were there? What weapons did they have? What resources could they offer? The answers were not impressive. Earth had about 8 billion humans, but they were divided into many countries that often fought each other. Their weapons were simple guns and bombs. Their resources were limited, and they had already used up many of them. Some council members wondered why they should even bother with humans. The Cerebral Collective, a species known for their intelligence, said humans seemed too primitive to be useful. The Merchant Guild representatives said Earth had nothing valuable to trade. The Military Alliance questioned whether humans could defend themselves or help defend others. But Dr. Carter spoke up. She said humans had something special to offer. They had diversity. On Earth, there were thousands of different cultures, languages, and ways of thinking. She said this diversity made humans good at solving problems in new ways. She also said humans were good at working together when they needed to. The council was not convinced. They had heard such claims before. Many species talked about their special abilities when they first joined. Usually, these claims turned out to be exaggerated. The council decided to give humans a trial membership. They would be allowed to set up a small embassy and trade with a few systems. If they proved useful, they could become full members later. Captain Morrison and Dr. Carter were very happy with this decision. They thanked the council many times. They promised to work hard and prove that humans deserve to be part of the galactic community. They said they would follow all the rules and respect all the other species. After the meeting, Zixthara walked with the humans to their ship. She was curious about them. Most species that joined the council were either very advanced or had something special to offer. Humans seemed to have neither. Yet something about them interested her. Dr. Carter asked Zixthara many questions about the galaxy. She wanted to know about different planets, different cultures, and different ways of life. Her questions were simple but thoughtful. She seemed to truly care about understanding others. Captain Morrison asked about trade routes and defense systems. His questions showed he was thinking about how to keep his people safe. As they reached the human ship, Zixthara noticed something. The crew members were working together smoothly. They helped each other without being asked. They shared jobs and responsibilities. When one person made a mistake, others helped fix it without blame or anger. This was unusual. Most species had strict hierarchies and rules about who could do what. The humans invited Zixthara aboard their ship. The inside was cramped and simple, but it was clean and organized. The crew was friendly and curious. They asked her about her planet and her people. They offered her human food and drinks. Everything they did seemed genuine and kind. That night, Zixthara wrote her first report about humans. She described them as a primitive but friendly species. She noted their eagerness to learn and their willingness to cooperate. She recommended careful monitoring, but saw no immediate threat or special value. She filed the report and forgot about it, looking back. Now, Zixthara realized this was the biggest mistake of her career. She had completely underestimated the humans. What she saw as weakness was actually their greatest strength. Their humility, their curiosity, and their desire to learn were not signs of a primitive species. They were signs of a species that could adapt to anything and grow beyond all expectations. The humans had fooled everyone, including themselves. They did not know what they were capable of. They thought they were just another species, trying to find their place in the galaxy. But they were something much more dangerous and much more wonderful than anyone could have imagined. 3 months after the humans joined the council, Zixthara got a new assignment. She had to watch the human progress and write reports about how they were doing. The council wanted to know if humans were following the rules, and if they were useful to the galaxy. Zixthara thought this would be an easy job. She expected to write simple reports about a simple species. She was wrong. The first surprise came when she visited the human embassy. The building was still small and plain, but something had changed. The humans had somehow made their computers work faster. Their communication system was clearer than before. Their energy systems were more efficient. When Zixthara asked about these improvements, the humans seemed confused by her surprise. Tony Rodriguez, the human engineer, showed her around the technical areas. He was a short man with dark hair and friendly eyes. He explained that he had looked at the alien technology. They were given and found ways to make it better. He spoke like this was normal and easy. He said he just changed a few things here and there to make everything work smoother. Zixthara was shocked. The technology Tony had improved was standard across the galaxy. Millions of engineers from hundreds of species had worked on it for centuries. No one had ever thought it could be significantly improved. Yet this human had done it in just a few months, almost by accident. Dr. Amy Walsh, the human medical officer, had done something similar. She had studied alien healing techniques and combined them with human medical knowledge. The result was new treatments that worked better than anything either species had developed alone. She had cured diseases that had puzzled alien doctors for generations. She did this by asking simple questions that no one else had thought to ask. But the real surprise was how fast humans were spreading through the galaxy. They were not conquering or taking over. They were just showing up everywhere, making friends, and somehow making everything better. Captain Bill Harper had started a trading company that was already making profits on routes that other traders had given up on. He found ways to make deals that helped everyone involved. Helen Brooks, a human diplomat, was working with the Zephyrians and the Vorthans to solve a border dispute that had lasted for 200 years. The two species had been arguing about mining rights in a system between their territories. Hundreds of negotiators had tried to solve the problem before, but Helen had found a solution in just 6 weeks. She suggested they share the system and split the profits. It was so simple that everyone wondered why no one had thought of it before. Zixthara began to notice a pattern. Humans did not try to be smarter or stronger than other species. Instead, they looked at problems from new angles. They asked different questions. They combined ideas in ways that no one else had tried. They were not afraid to suggest simple solutions to complex problems. The most interesting discovery came when Zixthara observed human children. The human ambassador had brought his family to live at the embassy. His daughter, Katie Nelson, was only 10 years old. She was playing with young Zephyrians who were visiting with their parents. The Zephyrian language was extremely difficult. It used tones and sounds that most species could not make. Yet Katie was speaking it perfectly after just 2 weeks. 8-year-old Alex Turner was even more impressive. His mother worked as a translator, and Alex often sat in on meetings. During one session with the Cerebral Collective, Alex solved a mathematical problem that the adult aliens had been struggling with. He did it quickly and easily, like it was a simple game. The Cerebral Collective members were amazed. They prided themselves on being the smartest species in the galaxy. Zixthara realized that human children were learning faster than anyone expected. They were not just memorizing facts. They were understanding concepts and making connections that surprised even their parents. Human families were becoming bridges between different species and cultures. The humans were also changing in unexpected ways. Captain Morrison had learned to speak 5 alien languages fluently. Dr. Carter had developed new research methods that combined human intuition with alien logic. The embassy staff had adapted to alien customs so well that they could work with any species without causing offense. What amazed Zixthara most was how the humans helped each other adapt. When one human learned something new, they immediately shared it with others. They had created a network of knowledge that grew stronger every day. Human traders shared information with human diplomats. Human engineers taught human doctors. Human children taught human adults. This sharing went beyond just humans. They were teaching other species too. Tony Rodriguez had started giving classes to alien engineers. He showed them how to think creatively about technical problems. Dr. Amy Walsh was training alien medical students in her new techniques. The humans were not keeping their discoveries secret. They were giving them away freely. The results were remarkable. Systems that had humans working in them were becoming more prosperous and peaceful. Trade was increasing. Conflicts were decreasing. New technologies were being developed faster than ever before. The humans were not just adapting to the galaxy. They were helping the galaxy adapt and improve. Zixthara began to understand that humans had a unique gift. They could see possibilities that others missed. They could combine different ideas to create something new. They could learn from anyone and teach anyone. Most importantly, they could help others become better versions of themselves. The Galactic Council was starting to notice too. Reports were coming in from all over the galaxy about human activities. Most of the reports were positive, but some council members were worried. The humans were changing things too quickly. They were making other species question old ways of doing things. The Kethmori were particularly concerned. They were a warrior species that valued strength and tradition. They did not like how humans were solving problems with cooperation instead of force. They complained that humans were making the galaxy soft and weak. They wanted the Council to limit human activities, but other species disagreed. The Merchant Guild was making more profits than ever before, thanks to human trade innovations. The Scientific Alliance was making discoveries faster with human help. Even the Cerebral Collective admitted that humans brought fresh perspectives to old problems. Zixthara found herself defending humans in council meetings. She explained that humans were not trying to take over or cause trouble. They were just naturally curious and helpful. They could not help but try to make things better wherever they went. Their adaptability was not a threat. It was a gift to the entire galaxy. As she wrote her quarterly report, Zixthara realized that her understanding of humans had completely changed. She had thought they were simple and weak. Now she saw that they were complex and incredibly strong. Their strength did not come from weapons or technology. It came from their ability to learn, adapt, and connect with others. The humans were not just surviving in the galaxy. They were thriving. They were taking the best parts of every species. They met and making something new and better. They were becoming more than human while helping others become more than they had ever been before. Zixthara ended her report with a warning. The galaxy was changing because of humans. This change was mostly good, but it was also unstoppable. The humans were not trying to control the galaxy. They were inspiring it to evolve. Whether the galaxy was ready or not, the transformation had already begun. Everything changed when the Kethmori decided to invade. Zixthara had been monitoring human progress for 2 years when the news came. The Kethmori Empire had declared war on the outer colonies. They claimed the galaxy had become weak and needed strong leadership. Their first target was the human colony world of New Boston. The Kethmori were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They were large, strong, and brutal. Their technology was designed for one purpose: conquest. They had sharp claws, thick armor-like skin, and no mercy for their enemies. In the past 50 years, they had conquered 17 star systems. No one had ever successfully defended against them. New Boston was a small colony with only 50,000 humans. They had been farming there for just 3 years. The planet was peaceful and quiet. The colonists grew food, raised families, and built simple towns. They had no military base, no defense fleet, and no weapons larger than hunting rifles. When the Kethmori war fleet approached, everyone expected a massacre. Zixthara was aboard a monitoring station near New Boston when the invasion began. She had been sent to observe how humans would react to their first real crisis. The Council expected the humans to surrender immediately or be destroyed within hours. Either way, it would prove that humans were too weak to survive in a dangerous galaxy. The human leader on New Boston was General Chris Evans. He was a quiet man with calm eyes and gray hair. He had served in something called the Marine Corps. Back on Earth, when the Kethmori demands for surrender came, he sent a simple reply: "Come and take it." The Kethmori commander laughed at this response. He had never heard of anyone refusing to surrender to his forces. He decided to make an example of the humans. He would crush them completely to show other species what happened to those who defied. The Empire. The invasion began at dawn. Keth-Mori dropships filled the sky, carrying thousands of warriors. They landed near the main human settlement, expecting to find frightened farmers hiding in their homes. Instead, they found empty buildings and strange silence. The humans had disappeared. The Keth-Mori warriors searched the town, but found no one. They began to relax, thinking the humans had fled into the wilderness. Then the attacks began. Hidden. Explosives destroyed their landing ships. Snipers fired from concealed positions. Traps caught warriors in deadly situations. The humans were not hiding. They were hunting. Lieutenant Rachel Davis had been a mining engineer before the invasion. Now she was using her knowledge of explosives to create devastating weapons from everyday materials. She had turned the mining equipment into remote-controlled bombs. Every time the Keth-Mori thought they had found a safe position, Rachel would detonate another surprise. Paul Miller was a civilian who had built houses before the war. Now he was building traps and obstacles that confused and slowed the invaders. He used his construction skills to create mazes of barriers that channeled the Keth-Mori into killing zones. His work turned the entire colony into a deadly puzzle. Most surprising fighters were the children. 12-year-old Sam Johnson was running communications between different groups of defenders. He had memorized every radio frequency and knew where every human was hiding. He coordinated supply runs and warned fighters about enemy movements. His young voice became the nervous system of the resistance. The Keth-Mori had never faced anything like this. They were used to big battles with clear battle lines. They expected enemies to fight with honor and follow the rules of war. The humans did not follow any rules. They appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before the Keth-Mori could fight back. Every building became a fortress. Every civilian became a combatant. Every setback became motivation for fiercer resistance. The humans used their knowledge of the colony to create advantages that the invaders could not overcome. They knew every hiding place, every escape route, and every weakness in their own defenses. What impressed Zixthara most was how the humans adapted their tactics. When the Keth-Mori learned to avoid certain areas, the humans changed their strategy. When the invaders brought in new weapons, the humans found new ways to counter them. They were learning from each battle and becoming more dangerous with every encounter. The Keth-Mori commander became frustrated. He had expected to conquer the colony in a few hours. Instead, he was losing warriors every day with no clear progress. His soldiers were becoming afraid and demoralized. They had never met enemies who fought with such intelligence and determination. Dr. Susan Clark, the colony's medical officer, had turned the hospital into a command center. She was treating wounded fighters and coordinating the defense at the same time. She had organized the other medical staff to work as intelligence gatherers. They monitored Keth-Mori radio communications and provided information about enemy movements. Turning point came when the humans captured a Keth-Mori supply depot. Captain Matt Thompson had led a group of farmers and shopkeepers in a night attack that succeeded beyond all expectations. They not only took the supplies, but also captured several enemy vehicles. The humans quickly learned to use these vehicles against their former owners. The Keth-Mori realized they were not fighting farmers and civilians anymore. They were fighting a coordinated military force that had emerged from nowhere. The humans had transformed themselves from peaceful colonists into deadly warriors in just a few days. They were using captured weapons, improvised tactics, and pure determination to hold off a superior force. General Evans finally made contact with the Keth-Mori commander. He proposed a meeting under a flag of truce. The alien commander agreed, thinking the humans were ready to surrender. Instead, Evans delivered a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. "You came here thinking we were weak," Evans said. "You thought we would run or hide or beg for mercy. You were wrong. We are not just humans. We are Americans, Chinese, Germans, Brazilians, and dozens of other peoples. We learned to fight by fighting each other for thousands of years. We learned to survive by surviving ice ages, plagues, and disasters. You picked the wrong species to mess with." The Keth-Mori commander was shocked by this speech. He had never heard such confidence from a defeated enemy. He threatened to destroy the entire colony if the humans did not surrender immediately. Evans just smiled and said, "You can try." The final battle lasted 3 days. The Keth-Mori threw everything they had at the human positions. They used aircraft, heavy weapons, and their best warriors. The humans fought back with captured equipment, improvised weapons, and unbreakable will. Neither side gave ground easily. In the end, the Keth-Mori withdrew. They had lost too many warriors and gained nothing. For the first time in 3 centuries, they had been defeated by a smaller force. The news spread throughout the galaxy within hours. The humans had done something no one thought possible. Zixthara watched the Keth-Mori ships leave the system. She was amazed by what she had witnessed. The humans had not just survived. They had won. They had taken a peaceful farming colony and turned it into a military victory that would be remembered forever. The victory at New Boston changed how the galaxy saw humans. They were no longer considered weak or harmless. They were recognized as a species that could fight when they needed to. More importantly, they were a species that could win against impossible odds. But Zixthara realized something deeper had happened. The humans had not just won a battle. They had revealed something fundamental about their nature. When threatened, they did not break or run. They adapted, they fought, and they refused to give up. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to have a warrior's heart beating inside a peaceful soul. 5 years after the Battle of New Boston, Zixthara found herself studying a galaxy map covered in blue dots. Each dot represented a human settlement, business, or operation. There were now 47 worlds with significant human populations. Across 8 sectors, the humans were not conquering territory. They were growing, spreading, and connecting everything they touched. The expansion had started immediately after their victory over the Keth-Mori. Other species suddenly wanted to work with humans. They had seen what humans could do when threatened, and they wanted that strength on their side. But the humans offered something even more valuable than military skill. They offered partnership. Captain Matt Thompson had been one of the heroes of New Boston. After the battle, he could have become a military leader or a politician. Instead, he chose to start a business. He created the first human-alien joint venture, combining human creativity with Vorthan resources. The result was amazing. They developed new technologies that neither species could have created alone. The Vorthans were masters of material science. They could create metals and crystals with incredible properties. But they had been using the same techniques for thousands of years. Matt showed them how to think differently about their work. He suggested new combinations and applications that the Vorthans had never considered. Together, they created materials that were stronger, lighter, and more useful than anything that existed before. Dr. Susan Clark had also left New Boston, but she went into research instead of business. She was working with the Scientific Alliance to develop new medical treatments. She had discovered that human medicine and alien medicine worked well together. Human doctors were good at understanding how different body systems connected. Alien doctors were good at precise technical procedures. When they combined their knowledge, they could cure diseases that had puzzled both species for generations. Susan's breakthrough came when she was working with a cerebral collective researcher named ThinkWise 7. The cerebrals had powerful minds but weak bodies. Humans had strong bodies, but sometimes struggled with complex mental problems. Susan realized that they could help each other. She developed treatments that boosted cerebral physical health, while cerebral techniques helped humans with mental illness. The success of these partnerships created a wave of cooperation across the galaxy. Other species began to seek out human collaborators. They discovered that humans had a unique ability to see connections between different ideas and different peoples. Humans could work with anyone and find ways to make everyone better. Nick Foster had been a simple farmer before the war. Now he was running the largest trading network in 3 sectors. He had started by helping other farmers on New Boston sell their crops to alien markets. But he quickly realized that many worlds had resources they could not use and needs they could not meet. Nick created supply lines that connected isolated systems and brought prosperity to forgotten worlds. What made Nick's network special was how it helped everyone involved. Traditional alien merchants tried to buy low and sell high to maximize their own profits. Nick built relationships based on mutual benefit. He helped his suppliers improve their products and helped his customers solve their problems. His network grew because everyone who joined it became more successful. The cultural impact was even more significant than the economic changes. Human entertainment, music, and art were spreading throughout the galaxy. Young aliens were learning human languages and adopting human customs. The concept of individual rights, which was revolutionary in a galaxy dominated by collective thinking, was changing how entire civilizations operated. Karen Wells had been a teacher before becoming a diplomat. She was now negotiating treaties that resolved conflicts dating back millennia. Her success came from understanding that most conflicts were caused by misunderstandings and fear. She helped different species see each other as people rather than threats. Her methods were so effective that other diplomats were studying her techniques. The most important change was in how aliens thought about themselves. Human ideas about personal freedom and self-determination were spreading like wildfire. On worlds where individuals had always been expected to follow the group, people were beginning to ask what they wanted for themselves. This caused some disruption, but it also created innovation and progress that surprised everyone. The military transformation was equally dramatic. Colonel Ryan Parker had been assigned to help alien defense forces improve their effectiveness. He was teaching them to think creatively and act independently. Traditional alien military units followed strict hierarchies and standard procedures. Ryan showed them how to adapt to changing situations and make decisions on their own. The results were remarkable. Alien units trained by humans were showing unprecedented effectiveness against traditional threats. They were better at responding to surprises, better at working together, and better at achieving their objectives. The rigid military structures that had dominated galactic warfare for centuries were being replaced by flexible, adaptive forces. But the most impressive change was in the young people. Alien children who grew up around humans were different from their parents. They were more curious, more creative, and more willing to question authority. They asked, why, instead of just accepting what they were told. They formed friendships across species lines that would have been impossible before human contact. Zix Thara visited a school in the trade world of Nexus Prime, where human and alien children learned together. She watched 10-year-old Lucy Martinez playing with a young Keth Mori, whose parents had been enemies just a few years earlier. They were building something together, combining human imagination with Keth Mori engineering skills. Neither child cared about the old conflicts between their species. The teacher, an elderly Zephyrian named Harmony Song, explained how the children learned from each other. The human children taught alien children to think independently and ask questions. The alien children taught human children to appreciate different perspectives and work within groups. Together, They were creating new ways of thinking that combined the best of all species. The economic numbers were staggering. Galactic trade had increased by 300% in 5 years. New technologies were being developed at 10 times the previous rate. Unemployment was at historic lows across most systems. The galaxy was becoming richer, more innovative, and more connected than ever before. Dan Peterson had started as a small businessman on Earth. Now he was running an economic network that spanned the galaxy. His success came from understanding that wealth was not a zero-sum game. When everyone prospered, everyone benefited. He created systems that helped small businesses grow, helped inventors find funding, and helped workers develop new skills. The transformation was not without problems. Some species resented the changes. The Isolationist Alliance complained that human influence was destroying traditional cultures. The hierarchical orders worried that individual rights would lead to chaos and disorder. Even some humans were concerned about how fast everything was changing, but the benefits were undeniable. Wars were decreasing as trade increased. Scientific discoveries were accelerating as researchers collaborated across species lines. Cultural exchange was creating new forms of art and entertainment that enriched everyone's lives. The galaxy was becoming a more interesting, more prosperous, and more peaceful place. Zixthara realized that she was witnessing something historic. The humans were not just joining galactic civilization. They were transforming it into something entirely new. They were creating a galaxy where diversity was strength, where cooperation was more powerful than competition, and where anyone could achieve their dreams. The most remarkable thing was that the humans were not trying to control this transformation. They were simply being themselves. Their nature was to adapt, to improve, and to form connections with others. They could not help but make everything around them better. They were not conquering the galaxy. They were inspiring it to become greater than it had ever been before. 10 years after first contact, Zixthara received an urgent message. The Galactic Council was calling an emergency session. The subject was humanity. She was ordered to bring all her files and reports to the secret meeting room in the deepest part of the council station. When she arrived, she found representatives from every major species in the galaxy. The meeting room was filled with tension. The Kethmori ambassador was angry. The Vorthan representatives looked worried. The Cerebral Collective members were unusually quiet. Even the normally calm Zephyrians seemed nervous. Everyone was talking about the same thing. Humans had become too powerful, too influential, and too important to ignore. Council Chairman Eternal Wisdom, an ancient being from the first species to achieve spaceflight, called the meeting to order. His voice carried the weight of centuries as he spoke. We are here to discuss the human situation. In 10 years, they have changed our galaxy more than any species in recorded history. We must decide what to do about them. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans were not just participating in galactic civilization anymore. They were leading it. Admiral Frank Davis commanded the most effective fleet in galactic history. His ships were crewed by volunteers from dozens of species, all trained in human tactical methods. They had won every engagement against pirates, rebels, and rogue states. No enemy could match their combination of technology, strategy, and determination. Dr. Carol Martinez had unlocked the secrets of dimensional physics, opening possibilities that had been theoretical for millennia. She had found ways to fold space. That made faster-than-light travel easier and safer. Her discoveries were revolutionizing transportation, communication, and energy production. She was sharing her knowledge freely with researchers from all species. The economic impact was even more dramatic. Dan Peterson's business network had grown into a galactic phenomenon. His companies were operating in every major system, creating jobs and wealth wherever they went. He had developed new forms of currency that made trade easier between species. with different economic systems. His success had inspired thousands of other entrepreneurs to start their own ventures. But the most significant change was cultural. Human ideas about freedom, creativity, and individual worth were spreading to every world in the galaxy. Young aliens were questioning traditions that had existed for thousands of years. They were choosing their own careers, their own partners, and their own beliefs. This was causing conflicts on some worlds, but it was also creating unprecedented innovation and progress. The Kethmori ambassador spoke first. His name was War Leader Bonecrusher, and he was furious. "These humans are destroying everything we have built," he growled. "They make our warriors soft with their talk of cooperation. They make our young people weak with their ideas about individual rights. They are a disease that must be stopped." The Vorthan representative disagreed. "Humans have brought us prosperity and peace," she said. "Our worlds are richer and safer than ever before. Our people are happier and more creative. We should be grateful for their influence, not fearful of it." The Cerebral Collective spoke through their representative Think Logic Prime. "Our analysis shows that human influence has accelerated galactic progress by several centuries. They have solved problems that we had given up on. They have connected ideas that we had never considered. From a logical standpoint, they are beneficial to galactic civilization." The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted to limit human expansion. Others wanted to embrace it. Some suggested that humans should be given special status in the Council. Others worried that humans were already too powerful to control. The room filled with arguments, accusations, and fears. Finally, Chairman Eternal Wisdom called for silence. "We are arguing about the wrong question," he said. "We are asking what we should do about humans. But perhaps we should be asking what humans are doing to us, and why it works so well." That was when Dr. Nancy Johnson was called to speak. She was a human xenopsychologist who had been studying her own species' impact on the galaxy. She had been working quietly with researchers from many species to understand the phenomenon of human influence. Her research had led to discoveries that surprised even her. "The truth is," Dr. Johnson began, "humans are not trying to dominate or control the galaxy. We are simply being ourselves. Our nature is to adapt, to improve, and to form connections with others. We cannot help but try to make everything around us better. It is not a strategy or a plan. It is just who we are." She explained that humans had evolved on a planet with incredible diversity. They had learned to survive by working with others, by adapting to change, and by finding creative solutions to problems. These traits had served them well on Earth, and they were serving the galaxy well now. "What makes humans different," Dr. Johnson continued, "is that we see potential everywhere. We look at a problem and see an opportunity. We look at a conflict and see a chance for cooperation. We look at different species and see partners instead of competitors. We cannot help but try to bring out the best in everyone we meet." She showed the Council data from her research. Human-influenced systems had lower crime rates, higher education levels, and more innovation than systems without human contact. Species that worked with humans were developing new technologies faster, resolving conflicts more peacefully, and creating more prosperous societies. "The reason human influence spreads so quickly," Dr. Johnson explained, "is that it makes life better for everyone. We do not force our ideas on others. We simply show them new possibilities. When people see that they can be free to choose their own path, they choose freedom. When they see that cooperation works better than competition, they choose cooperation." The Council members listened carefully. Some were still worried, but others were beginning to understand. The humans were not conquering the galaxy through force or deception. They were inspiring it to become better than it had ever been before. Admiral Frank Davis was called to explain the military situation. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a quiet confidence. "We do not seek to control galactic defense," he said. "We seek to make it unnecessary. The best way to win a war is to prevent it from starting. The best way to keep peace is to make everyone prosperous and happy." His fleet was indeed the most powerful in the galaxy, but it was also the most diverse. Humans worked alongside Kethmori warriors, Vorthan engineers, and cerebral collective strategists. They had learned from each other and created something stronger than any single species could achieve alone. "Our strength comes from unity," Admiral Davis explained. "When different species work together, they can overcome any challenge. When they trust each other, they can achieve anything. We are not trying to build a human empire. We are trying to build a galactic family." The economic presentation was equally impressive. Dan Peterson's network had created millions of jobs and trillions of credits in value. But more importantly, it had created a system where everyone could participate and benefit. Small businesses could compete with large corporations. Workers could develop new skills and advance their careers. Innovation was rewarded regardless of species or background. "Success is not about taking from others," Peterson explained. "It is about creating value that did not exist before. When we help others succeed, we all benefit. When we share knowledge and resources, everyone becomes richer. The galaxy is big enough for everyone to prosper." The cultural impact was the most profound. Human ideas about individual rights and personal freedom were changing how entire civilizations thought about themselves. On worlds where people had always been expected to follow rigid social roles, individuals were beginning to pursue their own dreams and interests. Karen Wells, now the galaxy's most respected diplomat, explained how this was creating positive change. When people are free to choose their own path, they choose to be their best selves. When they are not afraid of punishment for thinking differently, they create new ideas. When they can work with anyone regardless of species or background, they accomplish amazing things. The transformation was not without challenges. Some traditional leaders were losing power as their people gained freedom. Some old customs were being abandoned as people chose new ways of living. Some species were struggling to adapt to the rapid changes, but the benefits far outweighed the problems. Wars were ending as trade increased. Scientific discoveries were accelerating as researchers collaborated across species lines. Art and culture were flourishing as different traditions mixed and created new forms of expression. Chairman Eternal Wisdom listened to all the presentations. He had seen many species rise and fall over his long lifetime. He had watched empires conquer and collapse. He had seen technologies advance and civilizations stagnate. But he had never seen anything like the human phenomenon. "I have lived for 3,000 years, he said finally. "I have seen species that were stronger, smarter, and more advanced than humans. But I have never seen a species that made others better simply by being themselves. I have never seen species that could inspire an entire galaxy to reach for something greater." The Council faced a choice. They could try to contain human influence and risk stagnation. They could attempt to control human activities and risk conflict. Or they could embrace the transformation and help guide it to